Welcome back to another episode of the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Weiss, and I'm also the CEO and founder of NetScale Growth. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Elliott Boucher, the co-founder of Edusign. Elliott, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure. So, Elliott, kick the podcast off. Tell me a little bit more about yourself, your experience, and what led to the co-founder of Edusign.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Edusign, and I'm not a product and marketing guy. So basically, the problem was quite simple. We had a piece of paper that we needed to sign during school to attest that we are present in class. So we started with a very simple SaaS to try to fix our own problems, and it developed into something that is much bigger because we realized that the problem wasn't just in our school, but was very much more global. So we developed into a SaaS that does attendance, that now is leading in France and has a few customers outside of France as well. And we also do surveys, e-signatures for documents, so all sorts of administrative stuff for your higher education, so business school, engineering school, but also big companies and training organizations. So right now we are doing a little bit more than 5 million in annual recurring revenue and profitable, working full remote. And I think that's a good start.
Yeah, amazing. From when we spoke before, you are some friends who started the company who were at school together, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I co-founded with one person that was Dylan, that was in my school as well, in the same class.
Amazing. And how did you guys find, because I know a lot of people struggle to mix the kind of friendship with business. So how did you guys find balancing the friendship, but also making sure you scale the business?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think that you have to put aside the friendship a little bit and try to find someone that you can work with. So I would say that it could be a friend, could not be a friend. It doesn't really matter at the end. You really need someone that you want to work with for the next few years. It could be 10 years in some cases or more. So you need to find someone that is complementary with you. So in this case, it was great because I was more on the business side of it and he was more on the tech side. So it was a really good match. So we were quite lucky in this sense. But you're right. It's not easy every day. So if you have a very strong friendship that you don't want to break at any given point, I'm not sure that co-founding a company is always a great idea.
And yeah, so to go into the questions now. So you mentioned there, you've got around 5 million in ARR. From research, you guys got over 3 million users as well within 5 years. So really, really impressive. What were some of the most significant challenges you faced during this rapid growth, and how did you overcome them?
I think the first challenge that we had was actually too much demand because we launched just before COVID and we had a product that was just made for in-class attendance, and we almost shut down the company actually because we thought that in remote it would be totally different. But so we needed to reinvent ourselves in approximately 48 hours. And doing that, we had a lot of demand, like too much. So I was on the phone from 8 in the morning until midnight and just repeat over and again for a few months. So the challenge here wasn't so much handling the customers because obviously you can hire some people, but it's the tech that is very, very problematic because you have so many bugs, so much demand, and you end up making a lot of mistakes. So I think we paid in the long term a lot more than we gained in the short term by having a lot of people coming our way maybe a little bit too soon. I know it's a rich person problem, I would say, but still it was a very big challenge. So we needed to slow down a little bit and say, okay, right now we had that many demand, but we needed to refine things a little bit. So that was the first lesson. And right now we try to make things with a little bit more theory, more calm, and before we jump into it, basically. So, we always say at the beginning, ship fast and go fast and do things. I think once you hit product market fit and you have some customers, you need to calm down a little bit and go a little bit slower, actually, to then go faster. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast, basically. So that was the first challenge. And I think the second challenge that we still have, and I think a lot of companies have, is hiring people that are quite motivated and that want to build a product that you want to build with a vision that you have. And hopefully, we have good people on our team, that's for sure, but hopefully it will stay like that as we grow, which is also a very great challenge, especially in full remote. Full remote is great because you can hire people that otherwise wouldn't have come to your company, probably in some cases. But at the same time, you have this cultural problem where when you have just 5 or 10 employees, you're very, very tight and everybody knows who's doing what at any given time. And with 30, 50 people, you tend to have a little bit more of a structure, and so a little bit less control, which is fine, obviously, because you need it. But this is a great challenge that we have today. So it means that we need to be especially more careful with who we hire, because at the beginning we could shape them a little bit more maybe than we can do today. So it's important to focus on that, especially when with AI you have a lot of people that can candidate very easily. So you need to filter that out. It doesn't take you too much time at the beginning. And at the same time, you need to go in depth to make sure that you have the right person. So this is a current challenge, I would say.
And it's great that you guys notice that, because a lot of people, a lot of companies, right, they'll see, oh, we're getting a lot of demand for the product. Like, we just need to keep building and building and building because they see the dollar signs. But then what you actually need to do is like sit back and you think, right, actually, can we take any more demand? Because what you tend to find is as you keep on taking more and more and more, your quality of service just comes down.
Yeah, and the problem I would say is not so much the quality of service, because you can scale that with people at the beginning. So it costs you a little bit more, but I think we were doing fine. We're still doing fine on that side. The problem is more about the scalability of your tech, the product itself. Like, do you want to build one feature for one person that is going to pay you 100K per year to just do that, but it serves only them? Because very, very quickly you will have some custom demands. And so you need to decide, are you sticking with your roadmap or are you adapting? So these are the main challenges. And I think having a lot of data helps you decide, but at the same time, it also gives you more opportunity to have bigger clients that have very, very specific needs that you might be very tempted to solve for a short-term period of time to get some cash. So I think you need to find this balance between having the cash to build maybe the more roadmap-oriented features as well, because at some point, obviously, you can just build the more scalable things all the time, because otherwise you don't get those more bigger clients. So adapting is quite important. I think after some time, for a long period of time, actually, we said no to a lot of larger companies, because we knew that what they wanted was a little bit far from what we could deliver. And so we wanted to move too much away from our roadmap. So we decided to stick with our roadmap for a bit of time and then come back to those a little bit more customized demand once we are ready for them, because once you have the infrastructure and such, you can go a little bit more towards them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of spaces now are getting quite crowded in terms of like the competitiveness. So how do you position Edusign to convince these institutions to transition to more of a digital solution?
Yeah, so you're right. There are many competitors, but as you said, it's a transition to a digital solution. At the beginning, it was really our main competitors was paper and Excel files. And in many cases, it still is. It's some bad habits, basically. Changing that is a little bit different from competing versus a real competitor, so to say, with good software. So I think for a long period of time, it was just about user experience and marketing, and that was it, and proving that you have a good ROI with your product. So basically, how we did that concretely was, let's say you're hesitating a little bit, so you're like, I don't know, my process is good enough. Probably not, actually, but you don't really recognize the problem. We would give you our product for free for a bit of time, try to push them to test it, because we were really confident in our product. We are still trying to do that, but when you're facing a competitor, sometimes it's a little bit more tricky, because you have the pricing, the security, and other areas that can be involved as well, or sometimes just political things inside the company, you need to understand. So it becomes a little bit more salesy, I would say, over time, and maybe a little bit more strategic as well. So it evolves, but at the beginning, not too much problem. And I think, especially when you're small, you always have to convince just a few people. You don't need to convince 100% of your market. Forget that. You just need to convince 5 or 10%, which is more than enough to thrive. And then you can think about converting the rest. You don't need to do it right away. If you can, obviously it's great, but probably don't need to. So even if there is competition, that's fine.
And you mentioned earlier about AI, and I think it comes up in every single podcast that I do. And I don't think it's almost like a buzzword anymore. I think it's just a shift in reality, right? How are you guys currently integrating AI into your platform, and what future AI capabilities are you exploring to enhance your guys' educational admin?
Yeah. So, as a SaaS, the reflex that we have is, okay, what can I do with that for my clients? And we thought about it for quite a bit of time and tried a few things. In higher education, especially, big universities are quite slow to move. This is not the fastest industry for sure. Uh, we backed off a little bit and invested more in AI within the company, internal usage. So we have a lot of AI inside the company, whether it could be for knowledge, it could be for automation, it could be for resume scanning, for example, when we talk about HR. So we have all the things that we try to work on, and we're still improving ourselves. Once we've done that, we try to explore a little bit more the product side, but we are going quite slowly. We are doing some small stuff with big clients that we want to work with, and we are still experimenting. Basically, our approach is say, we know we need to invest in it, but we are not going to invest too much into the use cases, the specific models or very specific things. We are more trying to orient ourselves towards something that will be AI ready, which is going to be with a platform, with a good infrastructure, with a good API, MCP7 maybe in the future, but things that are going to be scalable and that we know are going to stay for quite a bit of time. Because the problem with use cases is that you can work, for example, tomorrow you could say, I'm going to build a good chatbot, and the next day another SaaS is going to build something even better. So it's hard to compete, I think, and we tend to, with new technology, be very short-term oriented. We try to take an approach where we get the data, for example. So we capitalize on integration, infrastructure, and then we know we will be able to build things in the future. But maybe to give you one concrete example that we are working on, when you have an attendance tracking system, you can be present, but you can also be absent. When you're absent, maybe you need to justify your absence. And right now, in 99% of schools in the world, it's someone that is going to read your paper and say, okay, you are indeed absent for a valid reason or an invalid reason. Invalid, and I'm going to send you an email explaining why. It's going to take a bit of time. So if you multiply that by the number of students, if you have a university with 15,000 students, it takes a bit of time. Even if you have like 2% of the students that are absent every day, it's still a lot of work. So we use AI to scan the documents that the students send to explain to the administrator should they accept or not the document very quickly. It still has a human component right now, and I think that's the problem with most AI use cases right now, is that we try to do something that is 100% right, whereas actually it should be 80% right and 20% of the time human selected or perfected. And over time, maybe, hopefully, at some point, it will be 100% right, but not right now. So we try to build around that.
And where do you see the future of the industry going? Obviously, with AI coming into place, what are some of the things you guys are going to think like going to shape the industry?
I think that in higher education, in education in general, students and teachers are going to be the most impacted by AI. It's so easy as a student to go on ChatGPT and have someone that won't judge you, because the problem is that when you want to learn something, you're afraid, basically, because you don't know shit. So you don't want to go to a teacher that is going to be maybe a little bit judgy, or even a friend. So ChatGPT is not going to judge you. So I think this is going to explode, if it hasn't already, to be honest. So this is for sure something that is going to change the industry. And same for the teachers, with a lot of things that they do. The teachers that just do it for the content are going to fail. You need to have this experience, this customization, this real life things that the AI can't bring. And this will be more oriented toward that in the future, for sure.
And what are some of the goals you guys have got for the company over the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, we're going from a tool toward a platform. So we acquired a company that helps school have a white label app. So it means that we're not just a tracking system. We are a platform that allows you to track attendance, but also communicate with your students, have a very customizable experience with a white label app with a lot of integration. We have the goal to be, and already are kind of in France at least, number one mobile app for higher education. So right now in France, hopefully in Europe, in the rest of the world in the next few years.
Amazing. And if people wanted to reach out, Elliott, find out a little bit more about yourself and Edusign, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and otherwise Edusign.
Amazing. Well, Elliott, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. It's been great having you on.
Thank you very much.